Hi, my name's Phil Bowman and welcome to my gallery at St Martin's. The gallery has been running now for 14 years, showing a variety of artists, usually every 2 weeks or every 1 week. So why don't we take a look upstairs in my studio, if you want to follow me. Hi, so welcome to the studio. As you can see, I've really tidied up. It's quite a mess, but this means it's a working studio. It's not meant for show, but hopefully you'll be able to see one or two examples of my work. So there's a variety of work on show at the moment, from watercolours to ink sketches to acrylic and an oil on the easel here. If I start with this one, I've been taking painting groups to various parts of the world, mainly Spain. This one is off the coast of Turkey. The very first trip I made with a painting group abroad, or taking a painting group abroad, was on a Turkish gullet off the coast of Marmaris. This painting is called Bosburun. It's named after the Bosburun Peninsula, and it was worked up from watercolours I did on the site, on the boat, looking into the sea, getting the reflections of light onto the water. It's very abstracted, which is the intention really, rather than a traditional seascape.
Do you travel a lot?
I travel mainly a couple of times a year, usually to Granada or southern Spain. So I've been taking, since the two Turkish trips, we took one to near Barcelona, and then my friend Angela married a Spanish guy called Avellino, and they moved to Granada, and so we used them as our guides and we went painting in Granada. They've since moved up to Galicia, where Avellino's from, but we continue to go to Granada. We sort of fell in love with it, and it gives people an opportunity to delve into the history of the place as well as get some really good work done.
Do you have any Spain work?
I do, yeah. If we take this one off, so this is a view up near the Gypsy area of Granada, near the Sacromonte, looking back towards the main part of the city with the Alhambra on the left. Granada's quite a lot greener than this, so there's a lot of license taken off with it, taken with this foreground. But hopefully it shows the heat of the place as well as the landscape.
Do you take pictures before you start painting?
I work from photos and from sketches. If I'm working from a photo, there comes a point when it must be put out the way. I think photos can make you very tight, and you can lose creativity if you're constantly referring to a photo. And when I teach people, I remind them that a photo is not real. We see photography and everything in newspapers, etc., and it's thought as a real replication of real life, but of course it goes through a process. So you must use your eye, your memory and your creativity, not just work from a static image.
And are you working brushes, palette knives?
Mainly brushes. I'm not very experimental with medium or with the tools I use. That isn't to say that I'm not creative, but I tend not to experiment too much with brushes. I like a brush for the job, and again, I think it's important to have a wide range of brushes to work with. If you start fiddling with a little sable brush, again it's going to become very, very tight. Yeah, this one's acrylic. I've got some more Spanish ones if you'd like to have a look. A little bit different. So This is a more figurative work, using the use of abstraction But this is the procession of the Virgin of the Angostura in Granada. We've stumbled on this procession every time we've been in September. We've been lucky to catch the procession, and this bier, or whatever it's called, is carried by a team of men, but it's incredible weight. So every so many yards they have to change the team as it's taken all the way through the city. And the ladies walk barefoot, carrying the candles. And there's bands, and the whole town virtually comes out to see this procession. Something we don't get in England, which I think is very sad. It's not necessarily that everyone's religious, but everybody celebrates tradition, if you like, and it creates a great spectacle. So this one's an acrylic, and I think framing is very important. It's not often I go for a dark frame with a white inlay, but I just thought it fitted the palette of the painting. So I just swapped these. This one is taken from, in the early part of the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, Spanish artists who were successful built these huge studios and landscape gardens, and this one is the Rodrigo Acosta house in Granada. There's a lot of license taken with it. It had very ornate sculptures which I've sort of abstracted, and a lot of license taken with this, and so it's not a true replication of the garden. But there's just a small sample of the Spanish paintings I've done. If you want to move over here, this is a Spanish painting of a difference. We have a local bar we go to in Granada called Damasqueros, and this was my idea of trying to paint one of the barmaids from memory. And I recently went back to the bar and showed the owners, and they said, no, that's not Tanya, but I still like it. Obviously, it doesn't matter whether it represents her or not. I really enjoyed painting it and just working in inks and water. There's another one of a life model I've used a lot called Emily, and Emily came with us to Ronda, where we went out in the landscape in the daytime, and then late afternoon she posed for us to do some life drawing. So it was a really good working holiday. That one in the corner is an artist friend called Ellie Benson. I don't think that painting's quite resolved. I keep taking it out of the frame and putting it back. There's still some work to do on that, but we're getting there with that. Across from the studio is a beautiful magnolia which flowers twice a year, but obviously the main time of flowering is the early part of the year, and it's just incredible blooms. And I think you can get, since the 60s, if you're a contemporary painter, you've wanted to paint big. I'm sort of finding myself going the other way and trying to paint little gems. What was a charity shop cup on a sort of invented fabric, and trying to get a little collection of small paintings. Totally invented, just really all about coloured shapes. The tulips are no more important than the shapes of the background or the invented table. Again, a landscape out of my head. This one's called Settlement. Trying to move my palette. Sometimes you find that blues take over your painting, so trying to paint yellow and ochre paintings and gold paintings is sometimes a challenge, or a red painting. This one was taken from various elements I've got in the studio. This pot I just recently purchased, and then the magnolia through the studio window. The shelf is invented, it doesn't exist. and working on a board, which is really totally different to working on a canvas. This is a very old self-portrait, which was looking at myself in blue tiles of my bathroom, and then bringing the face out more. You know, you wouldn't have seen so much detail on that side of the face. My beard and hair, what's left of it, is a lot whiter than the colour it was then. This is a sort of invented Spanish landscape based on the plants you'd see over in southern Spain, the prickly pear and cherry blossom, or almond blossom maybe.
How do you research your art?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm a big fan of British art of the last 20th century, which of course is very varied. So there's artists I'd look at and be inspired by, but not necessarily want to copy or they've even influenced my work. So I suppose if I looked at the St Ives artists, and somebody like Peter Lanyon and how he approached the landscape, maybe that had a slight influence on how I looked at the scene. But I think it's important to do your very best to be original. I say very, very important to be original, but if I were to look at somebody like Mary Fedden, and she used the same vehicle as Picasso, where you tip the table up but have the object sideways on. So I suppose that's a cubist vehicle without a doubt. And the pot is based on a pot I bought from a brilliant ceramicist called Peter Moss, who's something of a legend around Lincoln and Lincolnshire. This is from Rhondda. It's a place called the Water Mines, and you sort of go down a lot of stone steps, and it opens out into these amazing greens and blues of the water. It's just a fantastic discovery. And so I did 2 paintings from the water mines, and I think it'll be an ongoing theme. I've got one here unframed. There. So again, yeah, there's so many colours in the water, from ultramarine to that really, I don't know, sort of viridian green.
How do you arrive to these colors?
I've been described as a colourist, and so my background is as a commercial screen printer, so I was working with colour every single day, and in advertising it's very much about heightened colour. That sort of stayed with me, the fact that I look for heightened colour without it taking over, without it becoming harsh. I want colour to sing. I don't want it to smack you in the face. I want it to last in your head for a long time. Not instant gratification, but this idea is singing like a note that goes on forever.
And you're working in charcoal as well?
Yeah. As a child, all I did was draw, because, you know, like a lot of parents, they didn't like mess on their table. My mum was a fantastic lady, but it'd be wrong to say that I wasn't encouraged to paint, but it was far easier for me to be given a pad and pencil. The sad thing now is that I spend far more time painting than I do drawing, and I think it's really important to keep drawing. So if I'm drawing, I tend to add watercolour with it, or ink, or even water with the charcoal. So getting myself to stop painting and just draw for drawing's sake is a bit of a problem for me, which I made sure I didn't on this one, because the model for this was another barmaid, as you probably gather by now that I spend a lot of time in bars when I'm not painting. and there was a sort of trend in this country, and probably in France too, of ladies letting their eyebrows go really sculptural and quite thick, and this young lady who worked behind the bar in our local was no exception. So it's just strong marks with a little bit of rubbing in on the hair and various tonal areas. This one is a work in progress. This one's called Ascension, and it's a larger version of a smaller painting I did some time ago. And I very, very rarely do anything political, but I was struck by what was happening in the Middle East, particularly Syria and Iraq, and thinking about the various communities that their whole way of life was being destroyed. So this one's called Ascension. I think we're very lucky in the West. I think atheism is a luxury of the West. If you're in the Middle East, if you're Christian or if you're a Sunni, it's part of your identity, it's part of your village, it's part of your ceremonies. There are people that speak the same language as Christ. So you're going back 2,000 years, and that was destroyed in a matter of weeks. So it's a rare political painting, if you like, but it's not resolved yet. It's when you blow a canvas up to try and do a bigger version, it often is going to go through a lot more changes, and I think the bottom section will have to be reduced and move, and this area is so dominant, it's going to have to be smaller and moved either off centre, and planer planes put in towards the bottom of the canvas. So back in Granada, we were very fortunate to be invited to the cave home of a guitarist and dancer up in the Sacramonte gypsy area of Granada. So this is Carolina, who's an incredible dancer. The guitarist isn't quite David. He was not as stocky as that, but again, not getting carried away with lightness. It's just trying to create the atmosphere. So the guy who clapping is very important for the rhythm of flamenco, and it's a beautiful area, the Sacramonte. It's quite rough and ready. People live in caves or houses that you might not think too salubrious, but although there's some very nice areas within Sacramonte, but it has such a vibrant atmosphere. And if you want to see flamenco, if you want to see people wandering around with guitars, that's the place to be. That and the Mirador San Nicolas. You can't move very far from seeing musicians and dancers in Granada. So it's not just about the Alhambra, it's about the duende from the soul. So hopefully there's some duende in that painting. This painting is called Red River. It's an invented Spanish landscape. You've probably noticed looking at my work, I flip from the figurative to the abstract, and usually there's something midway with abstraction. This one to me is really heavily loaded towards the abstract, but there's still a sense of landscape and movement in the landscape. I suppose it was an exercise in trying to do a gold painting, not a gold with metallic gold, but gold as the colour. But then I needed to cut through it, and so the red became a vehicle. There's nothing much I can say really. You go down and up and round. It's an exercise in movement and in colour. I sort of wheeled away from Ellie on a stepladder.
What about the one in the back?
This painting is very, very old. if I just bring it round here. It's got to be at least, I don't know, 18 years old, this painting. It's been various things. It's acted as a door under my cupboard at home. I keep returning to it. The background has been blue, like the blue tile of my self-portrait. I think it's getting near to conclusion now. I think this area is just going to be cleaned up with a flatter colour, and then we'll get a frame on it and forget about it, hopefully. But it's not a bad painting. I think we're about there. So I think we all have to be careful what we throw away and what we discard, because years later you may rescue something, or I have a pile underneath this painting that is all for what I call rescue pieces, where there's something right with them, or 70% right with them, or they're going to lead me onto a more finished painting. I think that's the main dilemma of the artist, is they're constantly struggling for space, but they may be in danger of throwing precious items out in order to find more space. So it sort of defeats the object.
Do you have artists who inspired you in your figurative work or abstract work or landscapes?
I think that discovering Modigliani was important in terms of working from the figure. There's been I'm sort of obsessed with looking at artists' work. You know, as I said earlier, a lot of the British artists of the last century, and also the School of Paris, Modigliani, obviously Picasso and Braque. But I'm not conscious of influence, really. I think we all are influenced, you know, but I don't set out to do a Cézanne still life, something like that, you know. It's probably information we've taken in subconsciously. But there are artists I love to look at. I mean, people like David Hockney, how people have the strength in very old age to do such large bodies of work is incredible. I think he's a genius, and I think he deserves to be lauded more than he is, really. There's an excellent artist called Brian Winter, who's one of the Sentai's second generation. So although I'd say this is nothing like his paintings, it's certainly looking at his themes of water and how to capture water in a sort of very graphic way. So the idea that you're looking through probably a canopy of a forest into a green stream, and the black that cuts across is the leaves and branches of the tree, but very, very abstracted, and taking great inspiration from the later work of Brian Winter, who should be better known, certainly along with Peter Lanyon and Ben Nicholson. He was every bit as important, but seems to have just been a little bit more forgotten than they are. And so we also mentioned Sales. You know, that this isn't the most popular piece of work I've done, but it's certainly one of my favourite pieces of work, and I get a lot of joy from revisiting it and looking at it. And the aim is to create a series at some point of maybe 3 or 5 paintings following on from this, what I call meander. So I want to meander a lot longer on this subject. So this is a screen print. It's sort of very loosely based on patterns you'll see in the Alhambra in Granada, and it's called Fragments. So this is sort of very, very loosely based on the tile work in the Alhambra. This could be a steeple of a church, so you're very aware when you go to anybody who's been to Granada, you're very aware of the history of the Moorish element and the Reconquista. So I'm just really quite pleased with this. Originally I tried to make it more 3D and started working in the shapes, but I'm quite pleased that I left it very flat colours. This is a portrait of Estonia. Estonia is an artist in her own right, but she also did a lot of modelling for me years ago. She's a Malaysian heritage, so the contrast between the skin colour and this vivid blue top, and a ponytail became a sort of a logo. If I did any sort of loose drawings, the ponytail was as important as her eyes. It's as you work with the model on a regular basis, it becomes very personal, and it's hard to explain, but as I say, this ponytail became very important, and if she tied her hair in a certain way and it wasn't showing, I'd still put it in because it was very much part of her. Back again to a probably more abstracted landscape. This painting follows on very much from that one, or was it the other way around? That was probably the first one. But I was really pleased with, I was sort of trying to get the depth with, and these were sort of rushes going towards the mountain, but it was just getting too complicated and interfering with the focal point, so it became just a series of shapes, which hopefully still takes you through. In composition terms, it's very conceived as wrong having the most important thing bang in the centre of a painting, but hopefully it works with this strong section anchoring the mountain. So there's another landscape, not quite resolved yet. I think there's more work to do in the background, but I like working from fabric. At the moment it's early stages. There's been a lot of work on the pot, on the two pots. There's more work to be done on the fabric and the table in the background, so it's come out of my things to do pile. Likewise with this little study of Greek pot. At the moment the background is taking over, so I think this will go completely. I'm enjoying the subtlety of the cloth on this, and it really needs resolving there to this ancient Greek warrior that's not been drawn in properly yet. So I do like to have a few works on the go at the same time. This one's just about there, I think. I'm not sure. Again, using the Braque Picasso vehicle of tipping the table up with the objects viewed sideways. Now I'm looking at it again, I'm thinking maybe it is finished. It's a very traditional subject matter, but hopefully it's got some life, particularly in this area there. The table's floating, but why not? It doesn't have to make sense. Right, I've just put a selection of life drawings out. I teach life drawing. I think it's really important to be as rounded an artist as possible. Don't just be a landscape painter, or I think it's important. It's a bit like a musician having piano practice. I think drawing from the figure is really important. Sadly, it's something that's not taught in art colleges these days, but I think it's a beautiful discipline. So these are mainly charcoal. There's some ink. That one's in ink, and sometimes there's a mixture of ink and charcoal, the one over there. some more representational than others. This one's very abstracted and using the white of the paper as much as putting gouache on. This is a little screen print of Emily, who I spoke about earlier, and the portrait next to her is also Emily. This was taken from the Ronda sessions, which was, as I said, proved to be a very good working trip. This one is a very rare lino cut. So obviously that's the easy way of doing a lino cut, where you take out to leave the white line. It's far harder to do it the other way round. Something as simple as that, to leave a black line, would be hard work for me. I'm not a lino printer really.
How long have you been teaching live drawing?
I suppose about 20 years now. As I say, my background was in screen printing, and once I finished with that in about 2000, I started very slowly taking life drawing sessions, teaching life drawing sessions, and now I teach them once a month.
Many artists told me that they stop doing live drawing because it doesn't sell. What do you think?
If you let your wallet lead you rather than your head and your heart, then you've sold out. Yeah, I'm not interested in what sells. I love selling, I really do, but that's going to limit you. It's going to limit your excitement, it's going to limit your creativity if you've got one eye on sales rather than what you really want to do. Then I'm quite angry. And the nude and the human body will sell. People will find it attractive, but it serves many purposes, not just as a piece of work to be sold, but it will make you a better artist, in my opinion, and a stronger artist.
Is it hard to work with a model?
I myself love to work with a model, especially I've worked with the same models for many years, some of them, there tends to be a cycle. They might start as a student and they need the extra money, and so they'll do it for a limited period of 3 or 4 years maybe. Other models will do it after that period of time and when they can fit it in, because they enjoy the process themselves. It's creative from their side of things as well. I think it's important to work from both. For instance, if I'm doing a portrait, I might start with the model, but also take photos for when the model's not there. But if a model's sat for me, I can look round, I can check, I can make sure that I'm making a model look 3D, not flat. Very important to work from a model, I think. And it's a great way of getting to know somebody. I've met friends who have started as models, and it's a very personal experience. I recommend anybody, if they want to paint a portrait, get a model. Don't just take a photo. Have them sit for you, talk to them, capture them in your studio. Don't let them go.
How many hours would it require to become an experienced life drawer?
It's a hard one. Some people, we all are born with certain gifts, and so if you're quite talented as a youngster, then you've got a head start. But I do think you can be taught drawing, whereas painting is a bit harder. But if you can learn to measure, I think in 2 or 3 years you'll start to get really good results. And I always say to anybody who comes to my groups, you will go away with one piece of work at least that you're very proud of. Out of 7 or 8 pieces of work in a day's life drawing, I can guarantee there'll be at least one piece that you've either amazed yourself or you're very proud of the work you've done on it. This is a fellow artist called Ellie Benton. We saw the little portrait earlier on, Ellie is a very young, well, I suppose not very young, she's 33, but incredibly vibrant. When she's not in the studio, she's at festivals, or she's doing yoga, or she's doing cartwheels. She's just high on life. And so when I have a portrait session with Ellie, you're as much chance of finding her at the top of a huge step ladder as you are sat in a chair. Or she may do a few cartwheels for you, and you try to capture that in a few seconds. So we've done sort of what would be the equivalent probably of a clothed life drawing session with Ellie, where we've had lots of movement to music, and just a joy to work with. So here she's posed on the step ladder, and the studio's become a series of abstract shapes, really. I didn't want any clutter to interfere with the red hair, the white top and the pattern leggings. Right, so this is a sort of a sketchbook. It's drawings and studies that I've saved and just put in a sketchbook rather than a working sketchbook. This is a friend of mine called Marion Sander. Marion is from Hamburg, so I can't quite remember the German, but it's called Marion in Sonnenlicht or something. But when she posed for me, she was looking into the sun through a lounge window, and it's taking such incredible patterns on her face. Some areas were very dark, and other areas bleached white out. And so I've done a series of paintings from these. That's another Emily, who's just, as I said before, a terrific model. That one's pure watercolour. Some areas have been overworked. I'll show you another one in a minute where I like to take watercolour, because it has this ethereal theme where people think it's so delicate. But if I just get you this one, this is called Ophelia, and the watercolour has been really pushed and washed out really to the max, and so I think it's good to show people that it's not just a delicate medium for country cottages. You can really scrub it, and especially if you've got a decent paper. Just a robed figure there, just totally invented. There's a sleeping form. Another life, just a straight life drawing, really stuck straight into the book. And an idea for an interior. Another pub victim. This is a guy called Callum, just done with a pen. And Carolina was a Polish model I used in the early days. Just a terrific model. This is another life model called Jeff. Jeff was a life model into quite old age. Very heavy guy, a totally different model to Carolina. But he had this terrific head. So another artist who used to show in the gallery, just a very reflective pose. Terrific artist. That's another Emily. Emily has one of these sleeves that goes up to the side of her neck. I'm no fan of tattoos at all. But as I was saying earlier about getting to know your model, it became very much part of her, and it gave me a vehicle to work with. And this, how I've shown the tattoo, is nothing like the real tattoo. So it gave me something to invent and add to the body, rather than distract from the body or the portrait. Yeah, this was sort of quite an illustrative thing. It's sort of around Christmas time and thinking of the nativity, but not in the traditional sense that you see of the old masters. The idea of probably in a forest, just a totally different setting. In fact, it can be. I've signed it that way, but it could be that way. I don't know. But figures work better that way. Tracy, who's showing downstairs in the gallery, this is a portrait of her daughter, Sophie. I was desperately trying to find this for a wedding present for her, but I'd figured I'd stuck it in the book. So she may get that eventually. This is another illustration for years ago. I had a little charity football team in memory of my brother called the Aardvarks. And then I invented this story that they'd come from the South Seas on these rafts with a big aardvark on the front of the ship. Emily again. And that was just a scrap I just salvaged from something that was torn up that wasn't working, but I just quite like the simplicity of it. This is a Turkish painting. Sorry. These are some studies I did on the boat off the coast of Turkey. Just very simple studies looking into the wake of the ship moving through the water. Model Estonia there. More of that series there. This is in Notting Hill. We showed in a little gallery years ago in Notting Hill. It's just this beautiful area of London. By contrast, this is total abstract. Just plain's the wrong word, experimenting with watercolour. This is another Granada painting. We went into the mosque area in Granada, and there's these gazenas which are all out in flower, and it's just a beautiful space. It was a bigger painting. It was about so big, and I've cut it down because there's parts that weren't working. That's the beauty of, I mean, even if I'm painting on canvas, if an area's not worked, I'll cut it down and get it re-stretched on board. So this one here is an example. It's been cut down on all four sides. This is a painting of Ronda in southern Spain.
You're also preparing an exhibition for next year?
I've got an exhibition coming up in May over in Corby Glen. It's the Willoughby Trust Gallery. It's in a beautiful village, a beautiful, I think, 17th century building. So I'm really looking forward to that. What more can I say? But I hope you'll come and see it.
How can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Phil K. Bow on Instagram. You can also find what's happening in the gallery on Gallery at St Martin's. So please check those out.